Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you're on the lifeboat. Well, people, what a day. There's a lot going on in the world. If you've been paying attention to the news, or if you live anywhere but under a rock, you probably are aware of the fact that they're saying that the war drum is being pounded, and that any day now, in the next day or two, they're anticipating that Russia is getting ready to invade, and the United States of America is urging people abroad to get out as fast as possible, preferably within the next 24 to 48 hours, in theory, to try to not recreate what happened in Afghanistan. Now, whether or not that happens is, not something that I'm here to debate. I do think that since China and Russia seem to get along really well, I doubt that they're going to upstage the Olympics by doing this, but that's just my personal belief. We shall see what happens in the next little bit. But regardless, as addicts, we live in a world that is slightly different than the world of the air quote, normal, unaddicted folks. And because of that, certain things tend to set us off in ways that other things do not, right? I think we can all agree on that. And there's actually, there's been some odd evidence looking at how social situations affect people, especially when it comes to drug addiction and alcoholism. And there was a period of time in the United States of America where they would look at graduating classes from high school. So when you want to look at the classes that really got horrendous high numbers in terms of addiction problems, the worst of it is the class of 1988. But that whole stretch of, say, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, all of those kids that grew up during the Cold War, when there was a time in this country where we were told every single day in school that it was just a matter of time before we were all going to die in a nuclear war. And this was really, I graduated in the class of 1988. And I remember vividly going to school And there was one teacher in particular. I don't know if she's still with us, but who cares? She did it. Her name was Miss Alsop. And Miss Alsop, every day when we would come into school, would say, well, it is 3 minutes to midnight, right? On the end of the world clock, which they used to talk about all of the time. It basically meant how close were we to nuclear war? And they would tell us, midnight was the world's going to end. Russia's launching, America is launching, or I guess not Russia, the Soviet Union at the time would have been launching, and we would have been launching, and that would have been the end of it. In fact, my senior paper for English class, the assignment that you had to write this 25-page paper on, the assignment was this: the Russians have just launched. The world will be over in 15 minutes. The world as you know it is done. What are you going to do with your last 15 minutes? And this is we were teenagers. This is what they pounded into our heads each and every day in this country. And it had an effect. It really did. We grew up with this thought process of, it doesn't really matter what we do because it's not going to matter. It's just a matter of time before we're annihilated. For those of us of a certain age, you may remember a special on television that lasted 7 days, right? This was a big television thing. In fact, at the time, it was one of the largest broadcasts in terms of the number of people who watched in history. And it was a special, it was either 5 or 7 days long, but it was called The Day After, was the name of this. And when you watched this network special, it started with the mushroom clouds. That was the beginning of this show. Boom, right? And the entire week of programming was following a couple of people that did not die in the nuclear war and what they went through. And, we joked about it and we laughed about it, but it had an effect. And the statistics bear that out. This was a generation of kids that really sort of believed that the world didn't matter and that we weren't going to make it. I had a relative, a cousin, who actually wrote a letter to then President Reagan about how she didn't want to die in a nuclear war, and he took the time to actually write her back. Said, you know what, we don't either. And, I don't either. And Nancy and I know how you feel, blah, blah, blah. But the reason that I bring this up is because right now we're in some very volatile times in this country and in this world, right? There is an awful lot going on that is can put people on edge. Now, you might be saying to yourself right now, I don't care about any of this. Whether or not you consciously think about it, whether or not it's something that you even, spend any amount of time concentrating on, it has an effect on you. I promise you it does, especially since it's the background noise of our lives, right? I drove into town today to take care of some things that had to be taken care of. And that drive on the way there, it's all it was, the radio. They were talking about in the next 4 days, the war is coming. And when I went into the building that I had to go and handle this business at, it was on the television inside that building. They had a little, flat screen showing CNN, and there it is. And there's really no getting away from it. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're fighting the good fight is the politics of the day, the things that are going on in this world are going to have an effect on you, whether you realize it or not. And last night we were talking about organization, and this is one of the things that I was kind of harping on when I meant being organized in your recovery. You need to realize that this is going to have an effect. You need to realize that whether or not you buy into it, whether or not you take a political stance, whether or not you're one of those people that argues that this president blew it, or this is really the fault of the last president because of what he did, or maybe even it was the president before that, and how he handled whatever. Whether you're into that and you discuss the politics and allow it to get into your head, or you're a person who just does not follow politics in the slightest, this has an effect. And that domino effect is that everybody is a little on edge, right? Today, I heard a discussion among two people, and they said, this is what actually got me to turn on the radio in the first place. It's because someone was saying, I wonder whether or not they'll pull our athletes back, whether or not they're going to say, we don't want our athletes in China during this time of turmoil. How about those people? Number one, I don't think that will happen. But the fact that it's being discussed, you spend your entire life training for what might be a 3 or 4 minute performance, or or 3 or 4 minutes of athletic competition, or whatever the case may be. Your entire life is spent waiting for that. And before you think, nothing like that could ever happen, it did. It happened in our lifetime, right? There was an Olympic Games that the United States of America boycotted. And if you were one of those athletes who trained your entire life in hopes that you were going to go and compete and represent the country, only to find out that the country wasn't going to let you go and represent them. For those people who had to then wait 4 more years, that's fine if you're 16 years old and it's your first Olympics. But if you're 25 and it's probably your last Olympics, or it's the only Olympics you're going to, that destroyed some people's lives. All of these things have an effect. The day-to-day struggles of the world will encroach on your sobriety, especially if you let it. So once again, the magic word, as is always the case here on the Lifeboat, and as is always the case when we're talking about sobriety, is perspective, right? It always comes back to perspective. Will Russia invade? Probably, right? I mean, at some point, it's probably going to happen. Is it really going to trickle down to the point where it is dramatically going to affect your life? Probably not, truthfully, right? Unless you let it. If as this is happening, you plug into television and you stick yourself into that fear porn and allow that to be part of your day, I guarantee you it's going to have an effect, because it's not enough to say, hey, there may be a war coming, because that will keep you from terminating the channel. So they have to talk about what the worst possible case scenario is, right? Well, what if this happens and this happens and this happens and then this happens and then this happens? Well, then we might launch nukes, right? Or if they draw in this country and this country, it's fear porn, people. Their job is to make sure you don't pick up the remote control, right? Their job is to ensure that you don't turn the channel. Now, depending on what channel you subscribe to, and I've said this before, I don't care whether you're someone that watches, Fox, or if you're someone that watches CNN. CNN, they estimate, has lost 85% of their viewership. 85% of their viewership. I can't think of a business on this planet that you could lose 85% of your customer base and still stay in business. However, they are managing, for whatever reason, to stay in business. Do I think they suck? I don't know. I think they all suck, if you really want to know the truth. Because whether you watch Fox, or whether you watch CNN, or whether you watch anybody else, it's all the same thing. It's all fear porn. Their job is to make sure that you don't turn the channel, as I said, right? So if you're watching Fox, they're going to tell you that this could happen, then that could happen. And if this and this and this all happen, somebody might launch nukes, or, they have been working on chemical weapons. The only difference will be they're going to say, and it's the Democrats' fault that this is going to happen. And if you watch CNN, the exact same thing will happen, except they're going to blame it on the Republicans, but it's the same thing, right? It really doesn't matter one way or the other. And in terms of fair and balanced, you know what, people? I don't know how much fair and balanced anything there is anymore on the planet. The only people who have a worse rating in terms of popularity or faith, the only people worse than the news media would be our politicians. I think their acceptability rate is somewhere in the, they are funded by billionaires. Yeah, there's no question. They are funded by billionaires. But Congress has got a worse rating, right? But all of them are under 10%. Once again, can you imagine running any kind of a business where 9 out of 10 people think you're dishonest, but you can continue to stay in business?
I would add too, Tommy. I would add this to that. that
How do we get that gig, by the way? I mean, you know
yeah,
what I
for
mean?
real. No kidding, man. It's not just here in our country. This is like it's a global thing. This is no longer, when we talk about things, I know we all try to focus on where we're at regionally, but we almost can't even do that anymore. It's went from a micro to a macro, and it's just because of communication. How instantaneous it is, and I do think it leads to a lot of dishonesty because there's so many things out there. How are you going to know? You just got to trust your gut, and that's just me. But
Yeah.
and I agree with pretty much everything. But I just wanted to put that there. Go ahead.
No, I think you're right. We live in a world now that, um, news or anything else for that matter travels at the speed of sound or the speed of light, right? Any story can get from one part of the world to the other part of the world literally as fast as touching the keys on the keyboard, right? So Mark's right. It's no longer. It doesn't matter where you are. If you think that this is something that is unique to America or unique to wherever you're at, we really do live in a world. I think that I don't know enough about news in other countries to know if they're doing the same thing with the fear porn. I got to guess that it's probably similar. Probably not. I don't know if it's as bad. I don't think anything could be as bad as it is here in the States. But again, when we talk about keeping things in perspective, you got to realize that when you're watching the news, it was a great comment. These are big corporations, right? These are billionaires that own this. And, one of the real proofs of this is one of the most left wingers that ever walked the planet. This is an individual who really, really leans toward the Democratic side of the aisle. In fact, what am I saying? He sits on the Democratic side of the aisle. There's no leaning or anything. He started and owned Fox News, right? That was owned by somebody who didn't believe anything that they said on Fox News. But it's a business, right? Is that not? I mean, it's a fact.
Oh yeah,
So
it's definitely a business, man. I mean, that's my daughter asked me that today, Tommy. He's like,
yeah,
why do? Because there's a stat out there, 91% of the days that we've been a country, we've been at conflict with somebody.
it's a true story.
And so you put that in perspective. Why would She asked me, well, why are we doing that? I'm like, well, war equals money.
It's what we do
Um,
for a living.
so yeah, I just want to put that there. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute fact. I can't remember the last time I read it. I want to say that since we started, there's been either 22 or 24 years that we have not been in conflict since 1776, which is staggering if you think about it.
It's
It really is.
unbelievable.
It's staggering. But these agencies, people do not have your best interest in mind. And from what Mark and I do, right? Sitting here talking to you people and trying to help people stay sober, we on average, right, we're hitting it out of the park. And by that I mean our average viewer hangs out for about 8 minutes, which is awesome. For a YouTube number, that's through the roof, because average YouTube stuff is usually under 3 minutes. And I'm not picking on people's attention span. That's low hanging fruit. I could say, well, we live in a world that no one has more than a 3-minute attention span, but I don't think that's what it is. What I think it is that that's a disease that started with the news, right? We live in a sound bite world, and they're going to try to scare you into sticking around, and they're going to try to do it with, hold on one second. Yeah, Michael was talking about the Ukrainian people. Truthfully, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, Michael. I think it's a great point. I really do. But I really just kind of want to focus on how this translates to the end user, so to speak, because I'm sure that I could sit here for probably 3 or 4 hours and tell you my opinion on how we ended up in the condition that we're in as a world, in a condition that we're in as a country. I've got, like everybody else, I've got a whole host of theories that I really, believe pretty strongly in. I just don't talk about them here, and I don't talk about politics pretty much across the board. But as I've said in the past, when politics begin to encroach on sobriety, then it has to be discussed. Everybody probably saw recently that there was a big story about how the United States of America was going to be handing out crack pipes. And that story was kind of twisted. And it's not exactly really what was going on, but once again, the people at the news don't want you to turn the channel. And if it says, "Hey, right after the break, we're going to tell you how the Biden administration is handing out crack pipes," no one is going to turn the channel.
What was it they said before that? I'm just adding this in here real quick. The spin-free zone. Yeah, no, whatever. Right. It's not news anymore. I think we all kind of understand that. It's more of a talk show.
Truthfully, it really is not.
And I think what's going on north of our border right now too, Chris is up there. I think, even we're talking, what's happening is all this stuff is coming together at one time. Niall made the comment earlier, and this is piggybacking off of we're coming out of a pandemic, still in it. And all those things play into part. And I'm bringing this back to, the addiction part with this, that, we got supply lines that are getting cut off bad right now. When it comes to medication, that's not a good thing at all. And anybody that's in medicated assisted treatment, I really strongly urge you to keep an eye on yourself and what's going on around you. It can really, really get intense really quick. They're not going to tell you when it is either, especially with pharmaceuticals, because that's just going to scare people. And so just kind of understand that. And I do think it's a supply thing. And when you add all this other stuff into it, it does look, we're not doing fear porn here, and we won't do that. But just be aware. I think that's what me and Tommy are kind of saying, and it does affect the addict in a different way. So, yeah.
It absolutely does. But, as I've said so many times, and I probably will beat this to death and you'll get sick of hearing it, but every single thing in our lives, especially in the addict's life, comes back to perspective. So when you hear that they're handing out crack pipes, right, as a outreach program, free crack pipes. Okay. Perspective is kind of an important thing, because there's obviously a dose of outrage followed by a dose of bewilderment, or however you deal with it, or perhaps you think it's a great idea that they hand out crack pipes. Whatever the case may be, you just have to realize that it no longer matters whether or not they tell you the truth about anything. It just matters that you stick around. And we've all seen, whether, I don't care again, whatever side of the aisle you're on, but you watch any news, and every once in a while you will hear somebody come on and say, "I want to talk about a story that we did on March 7th because we really got it wrong. What we said was this, and this is what we should have said." Next up, crack pipes being handed out by the Biden administration. You're going to get this much of a retract, and it's usually going to be in the last, say, 6 or 7 minutes of the program, because they know that statistically speaking, no one's going to be there, right? There isn't going to be anybody watching. And this is the perspective has to be that you got to realize that no matter what is going on in the world, whether it's here, there, across the world, whether it's Russia getting ready to go into Ukraine, the logic is thrown out the window, and they just want to pump the fear. I was listening to them today talk about, the number of people who are going to be annihilated and the damage that's going to get done. People, very oftentimes, if you outnumber your opponent dramatically, you try to do as little damage as possible because you don't want to have to rebuild it yourself. The reason that the Russians want to go in here is because they want to make it theirs. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I don't care about it. I mean, I care about it. I don't care about it in the terms of this conversation. All I'm saying is, do the people who are telling you this news even believe that? Do they believe they're going to carpet bomb a country that they would like to then just walk in and say, "Hey, this is ours," and put their flag up? I think, more realistically, it's not going to be that kind of a situation. But regardless of what the situation is, it can't encroach on your sobriety. And the way that happens is pretty simple. If your serenity gets blown because of what you're watching on television, then your sobriety is in danger. And we all know individuals who, for the next 2 months, right, are not going to talk about anything else. I have friends that I promise you, if I call them on the phone right now and I say, "Hey, how's your kids? You realize that this administration," I have a good one. You know what I mean? I can't handle it. I really can't. And there was a day in the world where you could sit down and talk to that person, and you could say, you know what, here's where I think you might be wrong on that, or you know what, yeah, no, you make a good point, but I disagree because of this. And they would go, huh, not bad. Those days are over, right? You're either in my camp or we don't talk anymore. Like that's the way it has become. I can't speak to the rest of the world, but it is certainly that way in America. I have chosen to just not be a part of any of that. You know, when people bring up politics and they want to have that discussion, I always go, hey, you know, are we going to talk about gun control and abortion, and what other things can we talk about that might destroy our friendship? Right? Because that's what it is today, isn't it? You know, there's
cancel culture, and that's bad.
It's cancel culture.
That's bad.
Across the board. There's a lady who's a member of the lifeboat, and I'm still trying to set up an interview with her. But the way we met was because she was putting a post up in Facebook that said, well, next weekend is Thanksgiving, but I'm not invited home because I didn't vote for the correct presidential candidate. Not going to Thanksgiving because they didn't, you know, who cares? Honestly, like that's where we've gotten to.
We were at a family get together, Tommy, and just to put this in, this is really crazy because I relate to that so much, because we were at a restaurant and this was back during the election with T-Man and the first one. And my uncle asked my cousin, or it's my second cousin, his granddaughter, who are you voting for? First off, you don't typically ask somebody that question. That's a little that's a personal thing, right?
Yeah, a little too personal, right?
But she said, I'm going to vote for the third party, which would have been, you know, like what do they call them?
Libertarians,
yes, libertarians, yes, thank you. And the next words that come out of his mouth shocked everybody listening. He said if you vote for him and don't vote for, you know, T-Man, you're going to hell. Literally said that.
Wow.
Yeah. So if that doesn't let you guys know, even inside families, how polarized a political conversation is nowadays, I don't think anybody's ever going to understand it. I mean, honestly, it was such a jaw-dropping thing. I wasn't there. I just heard my sister was telling me about it, and I just could not. When she told me that, man,
staggering.
It's crazy.
It really is. It's lunacy. But you know what, people?
Go ahead.
Please.
It bleeds into what we're doing here, right? It bleeds into addiction, because people are hard-lined on all of it. You know, if you believe this way, you're not even able to compromise with anybody. And that's, I'm not saying you, I'm talking the whole, you know that, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure people understand I'm not doing that. But, you know, we got to be able to find some sort of a gray area that we can all land on, and that is non-existent. And that's what gave birth to cancel culture. Really did.
Well, and the reason that I keep crying perspective, you have to let all of this come in with a grain of salt. And I'll beat this point to death because it's important. Once you realize that the people who are giving you your news don't care about the truth, what they care about, and both sides of the aisle, I'm not pounding on one of them. What they care about is selling you a Chevy. What they care about is Q-tips and M&Ms and Coca-Cola and Nike. Whoever is buying those ads, they have to guarantee a specific market share. And it's like anything else, right? This side raised the bar to here, pushed it just a little bit too far. So the other side said, well, we got to do that too, right? And now it's gotten to the point where, you know, we used to watch news programs and they would say, well, this just happened. Not enough facts are in, right, to report on this because it's a developing situation. Not anymore. Now they'll just come out and tell you what happened. And if they're wrong, they'll fix it. You know what I mean? They'll come out and go, "Whoa, we were so wrong on that one." Now to the next story.
Well, they give you their opinion.
Yeah, it is.
That's the difference.
Definitely an opinion show. There's no longer a who, what, where, and why.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. I really do. And again, I know, you know, me and Tommy are trying to bring this back to addiction because it affects us all. This affects how we operate in life. You know, and, you know, my cousin that had just got said that to, Could you imagine if she was on the line of either wanting to use or not, and that was said to her? What's she going to do? You know what I mean? That's just going to push
Yeah.
her right over. Her grandpa just told her she's going to hell. I mean, come
It,
on.
if it threatens your serenity, right, it threatens your sobriety.
Right.
It is honestly a very steadfast rule of thumb. If what's going on in your life is threatening your serenity, then you're in the process of threatening your sobriety. People, all I'm trying to get through on all of this is nothing is worth threatening your sobriety. We have come to a point when you're fighting the good fight, and this is what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, that nothing should be more important. And I know people go off when I say that. Well, my family's more important. Okay, get high and tell me how important your family is, right? Religion's more important. Get high and tell me how much you're going to church. It's the start. It's base camp for everything in life. If you want to have a solid spiritual life, you better be sober. You want to have a good home life, you better be sober. You want to do well at work, you better be sober, right? All of these things, the linchpin is whether or not you're getting high. So if you allow something to threaten your serenity, all of that's in jeopardy, right? All of it. So you have to have a game plan in advance. We talked a lot about the organization, having a plan ahead of time, right? There's nothing wrong with saying to somebody, man, I'm not even going there. I'm not even doing this. Like right now, Mark and I are in a bit of a rant, but we haven't told you what side of the aisle we're on, right? We're not saying that, boy, if Trump was in office, we'd be set. Or boy, it's a good thing Trump isn't in office because we'd already be in a nuclear war. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Not here. It might matter in the big scheme of things. And I'm sure there is nobody that doesn't have opinions out the wazoo on all of this.
I want everybody to understand that we care, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're not saying that at all. Matter of fact, the fact that we're on that line of breaking our own rule here, talking about stuff like this, right? So the fact that we're doing it should tell you that we care. And nobody in there said we didn't. I just want to clarify that because we do. And that's what it is. We know what's going on, and we're not telling you not to be aware of situations or look at stuff. We're telling you that if it's affecting you to the point where you're so enthralled with it, or it's moving your mentality towards a negative place, anything negative in a recovering addict's life is potential for relapse.
Yeah.
So, and I know we can't eliminate all the negative. That's not what I'm saying. We have to do our best to bring that percentage down. And something as big as what we're talking about here that affects everybody, that could really take you from, hey, I'm not worried about my relapse at all. I'm like at 99%. And this stuff starts happening around you. You start feeling all these feelings. Then the next thing you know, you're down to 50%. I'm just trying to put a number there, but that's how I look at it. And just try to eliminate. It's the same thing as taking a different route to work because your drug dealer's on the original one. You got to go around that stuff sometimes, and that's just what I'm saying.
No, and it's a fact. The anytime I say, we don't care on this boat, I'm not going to talk about it, right? Mark and I get into talking politics for very long periods of time. The difference would be if we disagree on something, we just agree to disagree, right? Where the perspective thing comes into play, you can follow politics, right? You can get involved when it starts to threaten your serenity. When you lose perspective, having an opinion is great, right? Being up to date on what's going on in the world is great. However, you kind of got to watch out how you get what is going on in the world, knowing full well that 93% of the population thinks the news are lying to them. And you know what? They're right. Okay. So knowing full well that they're just trying to keep you on there, personally, people, is just a piece of advice. I avoid the news channels like the plague. Hold on one second. So I can't read that comment. Can you get that one? Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'm a little lost on that one as well. Um, if what you're saying is that drugs are bad, but if a loved one just passed, the only way to deal with it is to do drugs. And if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to offend you, but if that's what you're talking about, the key to everything in life, whether you're a recovering addict or not, is the ability to cope with things that happen. And there is nothing more difficult than death, right? I was fresh out of prison, and working on about 5 years of sobriety, but only about 5 months of those, 4 months of those on the street when my dad died. And I remember the feeling of wishing that I could make it go away, the pain. And for a brief moment, I absolutely, thought, I didn't think about running out to try to get it, but I thought this would just be great if I could just not feel this right now. And of course I thought about using, it did. But for me, in my head, very quickly, I realized that there was nothing on this planet I could have done that would have dishonored his memory more than that. Now, that may not be the case in your situation. For mine, it absolutely was. So again, everything always comes back to perspective. I always try to ask myself, does this make the situation better? Like, just like the news and what's going on, debating somebody, is it going to make the situation better? Or am I better off just going, yeah, you know what, man, I don't get into this kind of argument about politics, honestly, because it just gets everybody heated. I'm just going to pass, right? Same situation with the drugs and the death of a loved one. Yeah, you absolutely can use drugs to get through it, right? Problem is, you're not going to pump the brakes, because eventually when you stop doing drugs, that pain comes back. So the real key is you got to learn that no matter whether it's death, no matter what it is. Now, death is the top of the food chain, right? Nothing hurts more than that. That's the ultimate in suffering when you lose a loved one. But coping without drugs is the key, to sobriety. I'm not saying drugs suck. How's that? I'm saying addiction sucks, right? And being addicted to drugs, we're all in the same boat. Once you've gotten to the point where you're an addict, nothing justifies going back to that lifestyle. Not a death, not suffering, not pain, because once you go back, you're throwing away everything that you worked for. We did a show about, I don't know, 2 weeks back, where we talked about, all of the things that you deal with in life, as bad as it is. Mark and I both lost people that we cared about in the last 2 weeks, right? We both went through this, but it's real. The pain sucks, but it's real. And I didn't have real emotions for, 3 decades.
Right. Did you see Lizette's comment? I'm not sure if you've seen that. I can read it. It's up a while now. It says, peeking in to leave some news. My 37-year-old addict knocked on my door with 3 receipts in hand and told me she was all right or straight, whatever, but needed her help. I've been I'm trying to read it here. Hold on. I've been driving her, praying for days. So that's good news.
You know what? I know that story well. So God, that, what, that's beautiful stuff, Lizette. I know, Lizette's in Florida. We've been talking back and forth now for a number of months, and that's as good a news as I could have got. Absolutely makes my night. That's beautiful
That's
stuff.
Awesome stuff. And that's why, again, I think at some level there, we're talking about perspective again. And that's, all the bad stuff that's going on around us, guess what? Just that comment changed everybody's perspective. Just like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of what me and Tommy are talking about here. We don't want people to get just stuck in the bad place in their mind, because it's so easy for us to do. There's no easy answer either, and that makes it difficult.
Lizette sent me a video a while back, and I actually talked about it on the show. I didn't mention by name or anything else, but it was a video that you wanted me to see, and I brought it up here. I didn't mention anyone's name, but I talked about just how sad that video was and how it was just devastating to me. It was one of the saddest things but boy, you talk about a full circle kind of thing. That is so fantastic to hear that right now. I cannot even begin to tell you how cool that is.
Yeah, Sid, I'm sorry that happened, man. That is so bad.
10 days ago. You know what, Sid?
Horrible,
it is
man.
The hardest thing that's the top of the food chain. It really is. In terms of suffering and pain, nothing is worse than that. It really isn't. There's nothing. And everybody here, it's one of the things that also puts all of us in the same boat with very few exceptions. No one has ever gotten through, this point in life without feeling that kind of pain. And if you haven't, it's coming, right? If you have relationships with people you care about, we're all going to deal with losing people that are, near and dear to us. And
the other thing is we're all here too for each other. I really think that's a big key that we have to, I know we talk about that a lot, but sometimes we say it and it just gets said a lot and it just kind of gets breezed over. But that's the truth. If you think about the hard stuff you went through in your life, at the end of the day, when you got through that hard place, somebody had helped you. Somebody, no question.
Did. Yeah. And we've talked in the past about building a support family. For some people, you're blessed and your family is ready to rally behind you and they're ready to forgive you for the things you've done in the past with drugs and ready to be there for you, basically through all of the struggles and all the strife that you're going to deal with in life. For some people, that's not an option. And we recommend that you build a family, you put a support family. These are the people that you call when things are tough. Sid, I've never seen you comment in the comment section. I love the fact that, you're coming here and saying you hurt, because one of the other things we talk about all the time is, we say it almost jokingly, but there's never been anybody in counseling that has said, just bottle that up because it's going to make things a lot better.
Yes.
It's never, ever been said.
Sid's a Wages World and Renaissance man.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know,
Sid,
we know Sid.
Yeah.
Sid's a good guy. And it breaks my heart to hear that, man. It really does, Sid. It almost got me emotional for a minute. It really did. I hate that.
Well, in 10 days, that's raw. You're still right in the absolute thick of it. And I'm glad that you're sharing that, Sid. And I'm glad that you're here. And my heart goes out to you. And I'm, hopefully it doesn't offend you, but I promise you, I'm putting you on a list of, for prayers, because there's not much you can do other than just say, that we're here for you and offer, prayers and sympathy.
Right, and it's okay. What you're doing right there is probably the best thing for you, Sid. You said you were crying. Your heart, it's hard to type right now. That's a healthy thing to do. Okay.
Absolutely.
I know as men or whatever, we like to say, whoa, guys, whatever. No. It takes a stronger man to cry in front of somebody than not. I'm telling you that right now. Or woman. Okay, I don't want to leave women because just people in general. Now, we know that there's stereotypes there, and women are typically a little bit more emotional, but we're allowed to do that too. As a matter of fact, we should concentrate on that as men to be able to release that, because that is a physical representation of what you're feeling in your head. Your body doesn't know how to deal with it, so what's it do? It shoots water out your eyes. It's basically it's boiling over in your brain and it's coming out your eyes. That's the pain. It really is. And so don't bottle that up. Let that come out. And I ain't saying you got to do it in front of anybody. You got to go to a room or whatever. Just go do that. It's healthy. I love the fact that you trust us enough to even say that. That's a big thing for somebody just to come on here and just drop. It really is.
Sure, absolutely. And Ben Genetics just said, my son's birthday was the other day. I told him happy birthday, and he said his response was, "Thanks for being the best dad for 22 years." Made my eyes sweaty. You know what, people? You know how I feel about men tearing up, because I don't know how many shows that I have not been able to get through. I've sort of been open with if I'm hurting, you guys know about it. But there's nothing better than getting it out and talking to people. Thanks for the channel. Love you all. You know what, Sid? That means the world to us. And that's the truth.
100%.
It really does.
Yep.
It's
that's why we do what we do, guys.
No question.
When we hear stuff like that, and when we hear what Lynette said, I mean, come on. I mean, that's it. You know, it. It just, yeah. I don't even want to go any further. Yeah, I get emotional too. So, yeah, it
Yeah.
really does. It tugs at our heart. It really does, guys. I don't know that people kind of. I know we say it, and I know that you guys know that it does, but I'm not sure if anybody could really understand the level of what it does to us. Because there's many times we get off stream and we're both just sitting here like, oh my
Yeah.
god, that was awesome, great, and emotional all at the same time, and we almost don't even know what to say to each other.
Yeah. There's definitely been shows where we just sort of sit there. Sid crying, feeling so deep. It can only be expressed by tears. Purge all that out, brother. Love going out to you. That's Lizette. Lizette, I'm so happy, man. Honestly, I have Lizette. There are people that have been praying on this that I cannot wait to hang up and call and tell this. They don't know you. They just know that they're praying, and that's just good stuff. Like that really is. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That is just absolutely awesome.
That's the kind of thing that gives me and Tommy the dopamine release.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I get, that's when we're able, because I guess it's kind of like this, when you've got a goal and you achieve that goal, it makes you feel good, right? The goals that we're talking about right here, and these are long-term things that typically take a really long time to get to a really good place. So when that happens and that moment actually starts to happen, it's more than just accomplishing a goal at that point. It's everything, I guess, if you really want to put it out there like that, because that's what I guarantee you, that was everything to Lynette. I promise you that. That's what, when that happened. I mean, I couldn't imagine, like I say guys, I've been lucky. My kids didn't do any of that stuff, and all that, but I understand like the story of the prodigal son. That's exactly what that's like. When they finally first show back up at your door, you probably just like, and I don't know Lynette's story. I think we've heard pieces of it, but
yeah, it's actually Lizette, but yeah,
Lizette. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good.
But yeah, I couldn't imagine how that. I mean, that just had to make you just swell up inside and just want to just scream. There's my daughter. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Eyes up here, Tommy. Okay, I got you. Lord Kiss Freak. Look, I did this for a while. You know what? And you guys picked on me when I did that. Remember, Mark? I had I had a teleprompter right here, and I would go like this, right? And I would turn to the side to read it. Then everyone kept typing, what's he looking at, right? So at least this way, you know what I'm looking at, right? And this is one of those shows where we talked about, right. We talked about it before we went on the air tonight, that this was going to be a show just sort of catching up with everybody, having an opportunity to talk to everybody there. So thanks, everyone. There you go. Yes. Now that we're to that time, we're right at the end of the show. You should have been on here from Jump Street. What are we doing?
Sorry.
What are we doing?
Yeah, I know, man. If we were going to, in the future, when we have conversations like this, I probably will just cause I understand how you guys feel. You're watching something, you're hearing me talk, and you don't see nobody's face, and Tommy's looking at his screen, reading comments, because that's what that time is meant for. So he can step back for a minute and look at the chat and see what's going on and have some things to say about it. So I get it. So yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, the disembodied voice.
Yeah,
just sort of floating out there.
Yeah.
But you know what? Just to wrap this up, people. You know what? Put it all in perspective. Don't let any of this get to you. If let's carry it through to the worst possible case scenario, right? Russia's going to go into Ukraine. It's not going to be worth grabbing a beer or a bong or a straw or a needle, right? All of it. You're everything in life. The linchpin for happiness and the linchpin for everything is sobriety. It's for us, for all of us in the same boat. Nothing threatens, happiness more than that. So,
and we also got to keep in mind, guys, I say this a lot on my channel, The Wages World, that we don't fear things that we can't control. We can't control 1 ounce of this. So to let it affect us and, change our perspective in such a drastic way would be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
You know, like Tommy says, we choose our family, we choose happiness. Almost everything we do in life is a choice. There's those very few that we don't have a choice on, but most things we have a choice, and we can't choose what thoughts we have, but we can choose how we react to them, and that's kind of the perspective thing. And the way you react to things is going to be dependent on that very perspective. So just try to keep that in mind, and I like shows like this because it's so integrating. Everybody can relate, right? To everything that's going on around you. And I would say again, be aware, not scared. Right? We're not telling people not to pay attention, because obviously we do, right? People need to pay attention, but they don't need to take it to the level that it's consuming you. So, and if it starts affecting your serenity, like Tommy said, that's the point where you step completely back. And if one of your friends is telling you, hey, listen, man, you're getting a little, listen to those people. I mean, they're seeing it probably way before you do.
Absolutely right. And Lizette, congratulations. That's awesome. Thoughts and prayers going out to you. And Sid, man, we're sorry. Thank you for sharing. And my thoughts and prayers will be with you and with the family. That's 10 days. I know it's still really raw, but Sid, we're happy you're here, and we're happy that you're sharing this and trying to get it out. Everybody's right. Tears are a really good thing when you're going through this. So we're glad you're here, man. We really are. So tomorrow night we will be back. We'll be right here on the same boat, right? So between now and then, just one thing to do: reach out there and try to save somebody. I am Captain Tommy Scoville, and on the other side of the glass would be
Mark Wages.
And of course, as promised, this is A Cat in the Basket. All righty, everybody. Have a good night.